Hey guys, this is Disenfranchised. I am one of your co-hosts, Travis Gearhart. I'm here with.
Keith Cunningham.
I'm still out of town, but we have a really special guest for you. We have an actual ghost hunter. We had such an awesome freaking interview with this guy. You know what? This is a special treat. I hope you guys really like this. We've already talked to him. He's already planning on having us either coming back to talk about more stuff. He's talking about having us out. It's gonna be awesome. So hey, you guys have fun watching 5.5, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yep. See you later.
Welcome back to Disenfranchised. So we have a special treat for you. I am once again Travis Gearhart, and we are joined here with,
Keith Cunningham.
and we have a special treat. We are joined by Mike McDowell, the owner of Chaos Tours. He is a paranormal adventurer and the CEO of Indiana Ghost Trackers. Mike, I'm going to read your bio. Basically, has been investigating hauntings since 1997. Began the Indiana Ghost Trackers in August 2000, which he still manages. He's investigated hundreds of locations around the U.S., and he's conducted ghost tours of Northwest Indiana since 2001. He's been featured in numerous television productions, news articles, live televisions, and radio interviews over the years. Mike has been training people in paranormal investigation since 2001 and has taught classes all across Indiana, as well as ghost hunting courses at Purdue University. We are so happy to have you. We are stoked. Like I told you before, we were really enjoying just just the whole thing, right? So let me pass it right on over to Keith, or to you actually. I'll kind of
I'll go ahead.
hand the
I'll say
he's
something if you'd like.
yeah, Keith's got some
So,
questions.
so how this came about was one night I was flipping through Facebook and I came across Chaos Haunted and Historical Tours. You can check that out on Facebook, but I saw a post that said, I just had a call on an extreme poltergeist case in Northwest Indiana, and I'm putting together a team. Could be off the charts. As soon as I read that, I was like, whoa, I've never seen anything like this in Northwest Indiana. So I forwarded that over to Travis. I'm like, we need to get a hold of this guy. We need to talk to him. He sounds cool. So
Well,
go
well,
ahead, Mike.
thanks. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. As I was telling you guys, I was really surprised how that took off. I've been, as you said, I've been investigating the paranormal for 25 years, and I wanted to inspire a little bit of conversation on my Facebook page. Just, hey, we got this cool case we're working on, and just to get some chatter going. And next thing I knew, it was being shared all over Northwest Indiana, had 1,000 views. Heck, I live in Portage, and somebody was sharing it on Portage 411. Next thing I know, it was all over the place.
Your
But
Portage famous now.
it's funny, but at the same time, people don't realize that this stuff does happen. So if you have a problem in your home, who do you reach out to? I mean, some people say, okay, let's contact the church. Let's have an exorcism done. Let's contact the psychics. And if all else fails, contact the paranormal investigator. And that's kind of the way that this one ran. This particular case that I got called out to, the folks didn't find me right away online. They reached out to their church. They had an exorcism done. They hired different people to come out to their house, paid them cash money, which we don't charge money, and just to get rid of what's going on at their house. So a little bit of backstory before I get into some of my history. This particular poltergeist case we're working on, people are being injured, people are being harmed, objects are being thrown across the house, breaking the television, furniture is being knocked over, pounding at the walls, pounding at the windows, levitating objects. We've had communications on a printer, computer printer, not hooked up to the computer, just printing out messages from the ghost or the entity, I should say. In a poltergeist case, what's odd about that is not an actual ghost. It's usually brought on by a person in that particular case, usually a teenager going through a great deal of distress and trauma, but not always. It could also be adults. Most poltergeist cases don't last a long time, but some can last many years. But you could even see entities, and in this case, they've seen an entity. They've had messages show up on their phone randomly. They've had threats. They've heard the son that's in the house has heard something say it's going to kill their parents, for instance. There's been so many insane things that have happened in this house over the last couple of years, and uh, I just want to help people in general. So when I heard about this case, I said, I've got some experience. I think I can help you out. So I do have my team together. I conducted the in-person interview just a few days ago, and to see the house and to see the clients there. And when we get done and we wrap up the case, I'll go into a full backstory without revealing who they are and where they're at. But I'll give everybody the facts on what was happening and then what we did to help the situation, and going
Well,
forward, what results we hope that the owners will have when we're done. It's unfortunate though, because these people had hired a guy for a lot of money who came out and spent 8 hours doing a weird ceremony at their house, and it did nothing. I won't
yeah.
mention names of these people, although I know who they are. But yeah, I would recommend, if you know somebody that needs help, contact a paranormal investigator who's got some good experience. Doesn't have to be me, but certainly make sure that they've got some good reviews. People know about them, know who they are, and that they're trustworthy when they come out to your home. And
So when
there's a
you say,
number of us. Yeah.
so when you say paranormal investigation brought on by like a teenager, what do you mean? Is so that they almost become like a vessel from the paranormal, kind of realm, or is it more of like can you get into that just a little bit more
Sure.
while we're
Sure.
talking about that?
So a little bit of the science behind this is psychokinesis. You've heard of psychokinesis? The
Yeah,
ability to
yeah,
move
I'm divorced. So,
objects with your mind, like the movie Firestarter and things like that. In fact, fires had sprung up at this house on numerous occasions, for instance. So the mind of the person is super active. Usually they're under a great deal of distress. It could be at home or away from home, but these people are suffering basically inside. The depression usually, they end up seeing a psychiatrist. In some cases, these teenagers have tried to commit suicide. But the psychokinesis is very prevalent in some people. We don't know why, some and not others, but in these particular cases, they could be very, very active, almost like hauntings. But the extremities of the situation usually are what tips us off that it could be poltergeist in nature. The host doesn't know they're doing it. They have no idea in most cases that they're doing it. But there are some cases where they might have some idea, and then they kind of milk it for attention. And an example of this that's famous on YouTube, you can have viewers can look up. It's called the Enfield case in the 1970s in London. You get some idea like what some poltergeist cases might be about. So when I got this case and I heard all about what was going on and I did the phone interview with these folks, I reached out to a famous parapsychologist who's written a number of books. Uh, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I actually reached out
no,
to a
it's
friend
fine.
of mine who is a ghost tour guide in Hawaii, in Waikiki, who does wonderful tours. And I, reached out to him, and he's kind of a medicine man of his people, really great guy. And I said, "Have you ever dealt with any poltergeist cases? And what have you done to help the people out?" And then he introduced me. He says, "Well, um, it might be good to talk to a friend of mine who's been a mentor to me and a very good friend, Mr. Lloyd Arbach." And Lloyd Arbach is a renowned professor of parapsychology from the Rhine Institute out east. This is no run of the mill guy. This is the real deal. He has been around and has seen quite a bit of stuff. So Lloyd Arbach talked with me. We had a nice conversation. We spoke on the phone. We had a video call last week. We talked about the case. He's given me some really great advice for helping these folks out. He teaches classes online with the Rhine Institute, and I recommend him for anyone that is looking to get into parapsychology and find out the science behind, uh, what goes on with hauntings and poltergeists and things like that. But yeah, very fascinating guy. So anyway, that's the roundabout answer to your question about what this is. PK or is psychokinesis is what causes it in the human brain. Now, there are ways we're going to try to help these people with getting the psychokinesis to die down in the teenager. And I've got some methods we're going to try out. I'm also taking in some people with me who are energy people. They know how to clear locations. They also know how to focus on energy and help to move this energy out. People I've worked with in the past, as well as a couple of really great investigators who uh, who I've worked with many times before and have been able to help us out. The hope is we're able to, get something on video. We're hopefully get something on film, document some of that, and also if we can get some EVP or electronic voice phenomena at the location, that would be super. Um, the entity that's there, although I believe it's poltergeist in nature, it may very well talk to us on EVP. But again, this is the human brain at work. This is kind of fascinating stuff. When I first heard about the case, I wasn't quite sure it was poltergeist because there was some abnormalities that didn't quite align with some of the poltergeist cases. But so far, I am back to leaning on the fact it's most likely a poltergeist. Now, when we
Okay.
think of the movie Poltergeist, that movie back in the '80s with things flying around the bedroom and spinning and record players spinning around and, these weird stuffed animals and trees attacking kids, that isn't really typical with poltergeist cases. Although they can get kinda crazy, it's not like the movie.
Right.
So anyway.
Man, you're answering a lot of questions that I had just by talking. I was
I,
gonna
I was thinking that I was thinking the list that you had made, and I was like, well, he's checking boxes.
Yeah. I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you like what kind of tools that you rely on the most, but you're on EV or EMPs, I think you said, or EMS or whatever.
Yeah, I'll talk about that briefly. That's a good question,
Yeah.
and as a paranormal investigator, we go out and there's a slew of tools in our toolbox that we use, and you could spend thousands of dollars on technology, but I think the best stuff is a basic EMF meter, which detects changes in the fluctuations in the EM field. That's important to document that and note the time it happens and how it happens and rule out anything that might be explainable. And that means when you go into a location, you set baselines, you monitor where you're going to get your weird spikes at with energy. Because what it does is it picks up electromagnetic energy. It tells you what the reading is, and ghosts can give off this electromagnetic energy. So that's one basic tool. Another might be some sort of a thermometer, whether it's digital IR or whether it's something that just detects the air temperature. You want to look for cold spots because a lot of times with ghosts, you'll have air temperature drops. Air ion counters, another thing that I use, it detects the positive, negative air ions in the air, and we can look at the count of the air ions, and a certain range will tell us that it could certainly be paranormal in nature. But aside from cameras and video cameras, um, my favorite tool in the toolbox, though, is a recorder. Uh,
Okay.
my tape recorder, um, I'm a big EVP advocate. I've gotten thousands of EVPs over the years at so many different haunted locations, many quite clear, many stories behind a lot of them. But
Do you have those cataloged anywhere?
some of them are online on my website. I threw a few of them
Okay.
up for entertainment value. People can listen to some of them. I've got some on one of those online places where you can put music up. I forget the name of it. But yeah, I put some up a while ago there. We recently just did another case, and there was another catalog of EVPs that I put up, and yeah, I try to put some of them up online, but most of them are just at home on my computer, backed up, that sort of thing. Every year or so, I'll run a backup just to make sure I don't lose anything, because some of them are pretty cool. Um,
Right.
but doing EVP, I think, is to me neat, especially if you're getting a response from the entity answering some sort of question. One of my most famous ones, and it is online, was taken at the Valparaiso jail in Porter County. There is was we went through an area on the second floor, walking through some area where some army uniforms were at, and asking questions. And here we're walking by these solitary confinement cells, and I thought maybe I would get something from one of the ghosts of the prisoners up there. But I was surprised at the response. I said, "Can you tell me your name, who you are, why you're here?" And the voice responded, "Everett Daniels, USA Army."
Wow.
I and it was clear, Class A is what we call it. So I contacted the museum, Teresa Schmidt at the time over there, and said, "Teresa, this is what I got." She came back a month later. She said in 1973, when the museum was first opening up in the building it's in now, a family came in and donated the possessions of an Everett Daniels. He was in the U.S. Cavalry previous to when it was World War I. And at that time, they called the Army the U.S. of A. Army, the United States of America Army. They dropped the A in World War I. So Everett Daniels, this
That's great.
guy
Oh
has
man, see,
spoken
that's
to
so
us, and
look at
I've
that.
never heard from him again. All the times I've been back to the jail and looked for ghosts over the years, he's never came back, but we don't know what army uniform was his because the records being kept in the early days of the museum weren't very clear as far as what belonged to who. But
Right.
but that's just an example of what you can get on EVP and how that can be kind of mind blowing for the location. Sometimes it tells you why a location is haunted, and you can ask questions. Why are you doing this to these people? Why are you here? Why can't you move on? What can we do for you? That sort of thing. And I've gotten plenty of answers at the Crown Point Jail, where we go all the time with our ghost tours. And but
Yeah, me
w-
and my girlfriend did the pub crawl. I told
oh,
you.
okay, great,
Yeah,
great, great.
we did. It's so fun, so awesome. It
I'm
was
glad you
that was
enjoyed it.
a
Yeah.
good one. Yeah, it was a
Um,
good time. I would recommend it to anybody.
yeah. Now something about our pub crawls. Now, I typically every year I'll go out and travel the country and I'll go on other people's ghost tours to see how I'm doing. I have that ability because I'm only seasonal. I don't have to be around all year long like these other people do. And I've been on other pub crawls and we got a pretty smoking pub crawl, I'll tell you. We do a pretty good job. I mean, I've been on some and they're okay, but I've also been on others that are just yeah, they're just not all that entertaining, and these people think that they are.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
the whoever the person was that did, I think it was a woman. I think there was a woman that
yeah,
did ours. And just I couldn't again, it's been a couple of years now, so my brain's a little fuzzy, but
mhm, mhm.
she was excited. She knew all the information. She was able to, keep our attention. But I think it does help too that especially when you figure around that block in Crown Point, there's so much history, right?
Right,
So
for
you
sure.
I mean, yeah, and again, I'm sure there's other places that do that as well, but
Mhm.
we don't. I don't think one of the things I don't realize because I do a lot of traveling as well, and I mean, I'm in California right now for work, and it's fun to. I like to go and see kind of what the historical side of it is, but we really do have such a large, such a historical area over there.
We
That
do.
that's why I would enjoy it. I'm more I like the historical point of view of everything.
Mhm.
I'm a kind of a history buff.
Yeah, and I'd love to throw in the history along with it too, because we do have some great history in both Crown Point and Valparaiso both, and I've recently started in the last couple of years doing walking tours of downtown Lowell, and I was blown away by some of their interesting history of things that have happened there. I mean, including a John Dillinger bank robbery that happened in downtown, and the whole
Yeah.
story behind it is as the bank robbers drove away in their Cadillac that they had stolen, the sheriff was standing alongside the road and they waved at him and he waved back. He had
So,
no idea. He had no
so
idea
since
they had just robbed the local bank.
since you went from Crown Point to Lowell, have you ever been to Gypsy's graveyard?
Oh,
Have
sure.
you ever heard of that?
Sure. You
Yeah,
know,
me
yeah,
and Travis have been out there when we were kids, younger. But I couldn't tell you if I've ever seen anything. I have no idea.
I would call it a tourist trap of Northwest Indiana's ghosts.
Yeah.
Because everybody goes there, everybody's heard of it. And I haven't been out there in a number of years, but I used to go out there off and on, with the Ghost Tracker group. I don't know if you guys want me to mention what the story is for your listeners.
Yes.
Sure, why
Yes.
not?
Yo, please,
Okay.
please do.
Well, we should have the backstory then. Uh, it is rumor speculation that sometime right around the 1860s, 1870s, a band of gypsies was traveling through Northwest Indiana. Now, it's in no record books, and that's understandable because they were kind of a nuisance. People weren't real fond of the gypsies, and why would Timothy Ball, who wrote the history books, actually write down that these nefarious people came into town? He's surely, he had better things to write about. But these people came into town, and they had a reputation. People thought of them as liars and thieves and no goods, and they would steal things from people. They would bilk people out of money. They were con artists, but at the same time, they did read their tarot cards. They did fortune telling. They had their odd cure-all concoctions. They would do odd jobs. They would put roofs on houses. They would work in the farm fields. They were tinkerers. They were traders. They were traveling from town to town. It's like, hey, I got something from Timbuktu, Iowa, you guys might be interested in that we picked up from this guy. So they had their purpose, but Crown Point did not welcome them. They said, you have to stay on the outside of town. You're not welcomed in. As they're camping out on the outskirts of town, there was an outbreak. Some people believe it was malaria, yellow fever, something serious. And these folks, they went to town and they said, look, Crown Point, we need some medicine. Our people are getting sick. Crown Point said, nope, not going to happen. We only have enough medicine for our own people. So they came back after a few of their own folks died. And again, Crown Point said, no, we can't give you any. In fact, if you don't leave within 3 days, we'll give you 3 days. Something bad might happen to you because these townsfolk here, they believe you might have brought this with you. And now they're all getting sick. So can't guarantee your safety. So after 3 days, the sheriff rode out to the site. And there were the mounds of their dead. He walked through the grounds, got back on his horse, and rode into town. It was getting dark when he got on his horse, so he didn't notice, but when he got back into town and got into some lantern light, he could see his pant legs. His pant legs had turned blood red, which is the curse of the gypsies, that if you walk on their grounds, your pant legs will turn blood red.
Ooh.
So that
Yeah, I did
is
not know that.
supposed curse.
Yeah, I didn't know that one either. I had always known about the angel statue that is supposed to like move. I knew about that one.
So that is actually the cemetery caretaker's son's grave.
Okay.
So it's kind of sad when that thing gets messed up and vandals go out there and mess with it because that guy's such a nice guy. And
Yeah.
if you are a serious paranormal investigator, you try to contact the caretaker first and let them know you're coming out. Just be stand up about it. They've got cameras out there now anyway, so you are being watched.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, we didn't have cameras out there.
Yeah.
Things have gotten out of hand. People get a little crazy out there.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of stories about gypsies, more than just that. And people swear that they see balls of light out there, statues like the angel statue come to life for others and move around. And people have seen a lot of things out there. My first
Yeah,
experience. Oh, sorry.
For our me and Travis when we were in high school, it was always Gypsy's Graveyard, or was it Moody Lane or Moody Road?
Yeah, Moody's. Yeah.
Something?
Yeah.
I never went out there. Travis probably did though.
Moody? If I did, I don't remember. Where was Moody? What was the backstory with Moody?
Well,
I'm
Farmer
sure.
Moody out in Rensselaer, not far from St. Joseph College. He's if you follow 49 to where it ends down in the farm field areas there, that's kind of where that's at. Story is
Okay.
back in the 50s. Farmer Moody was had a teenage daughter. She was dating age and maybe 17 or so. There was a new boy in town that asked to take her out. Unfortunately, there had been some strange disappearances in town, and Farmer Moody was very reluctant to let his daughter go out with this guy. Obviously, there had been some strange things going on. So finally, after his daughter bugging him about it, he said, "All right, I'll meet with the guy and we'll see what's what." So he met with the young guy and said, "Look, have my daughter home by 10 o'clock, flash her headlights 3 times, and I will walk her in, but no later than 10. Park here underneath this tree so I can come and get her." So the daughter went out with this young man. 10 o'clock came, no daughter. 11 o'clock, nobody. Finally, at midnight, the headlights flashed 3 times. But by the time Farmer Moody got out there, the car had sped off. There, hanging dead from the tree, from a branch, was his daughter. They say Farmer Moody died of a broken heart after that and continues to haunt those farm fields. Some people see him as a bobbing light floating along those farm fields, but that's the story of it. But that's a bit of folklore, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've researched it. I know the real story that goes on out there, but I hate to ruin the magic for people. So
Yeah, well, that was kind of our next or another question we were going to ask was how, how much of the paranormal activity stuff that you do check out ends up checking out. Like you hear about the Lorraine and
like
oh
mhm. Lorraine Warren and The Conjuring we were just talking about.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yep.
and I know that there's a lot of people that have kind of poo-pooed that and said that a lot of that was kind of you know um what's your thoughts on that? All of that.
I believe certain elements of it were true, but obviously it's been Hollywoodized, and a lot of stuff gets Hollywoodized. I mean, it's not as exciting as they'd like it to be, so they add some elements to it. But I believe Ed and Lorraine were pretty honest people. I don't think that they were con artists, and I believe that they did a lot in the paranormal field. So kudos to them,
Yeah.
but people who say The Conjuring, it isn't 100% real, they'd be right. There's elements that have been added to that, and I'm sure if Lorraine was here, she would tell you that this didn't happen this way and that didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
But there are some things that happened that are in the movie, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So, so I have a question. What is the most unsettling investigation you've ever worked on? Or have you ever felt physically threatened by
I
anything that
have felt physically threatened in a few occasions, and you know, I there's one example at the Sally House, which in Atchison, Kansas, which is a very famous haunting. A lot of people have been out there, but I went out there many years ago before they were letting as many people go out there as they do now. We rented a house out for the night, and the story was that, there was a guy who used to live there, Tony. He would get scratches across his chest live on video from the entity at the house. And I was investigating the house and ended up with a big old scratch right from the corner of my jaw down my neck. It was bleeding. It was that much of a
oh,
scratch. I didn't even
wow.
feel it. I didn't even feel it. So I had my fellow investigators there with me that night. We're walking around the house monitoring, and they're like, "Mike, you got a scratch on you." I'm like, "Stop it." They're like, "No, seriously, you got a scratch on you." And I looked in the mirror. Yep. It was it
Oh
was a big
shit.
one, and it was bleeding. I had to, like, sop up the blood, and it's like, "Son of a gun, that ghost?" It's like, but that stuff happens in investigations. You can't run out of the place screaming it. Thing is, you gotta learn to put up your psychic shields, your psychic defense, and, um, you know, I won't go places by myself because then your mind starts playing tricks on you. You start to see and hear things that might not be there. If you got at least one person with you, you can bounce it off of, say, did I really just see that happen?
Right.
That's
Helps ground you to it.
yeah, yeah. I'm not afraid of going into weird places, but I got to have at least one person with me. That's my rule, just for my own sanity. Um, there's been places I've gone to by myself, but it's you mentioned like one of the weirdest cases. I was going to briefly talk about this one tonight too. Just I was thinking a lot about it recently.
But
This
don't even be brief. So like I said, that's the nice part about this format is that we've got all night. Don't give us all the details. I don't even want to talk. I just want to listen to you.
Yeah.
well, there was this case in Valparaiso we got called out to. We had heard that the owner was being possessed by the ghost. Um, didn't know much about it, and so I showed up with the team and found out that the priest had been out to the house and tried to talk to the guy, and the guy was probably maybe Hawaiian descent. I think he was 38-ish, maybe. Very quiet, and he said that the his pastor tried to talk to him. It was a pastor he had for confirmation when he was in 8th grade, and always talked to his pastor. His pastor came to the house, and he said for some reason he just could not greet the pastor. He went out to the garage. So his wife was concerned about this, and so was the pastor, and he just would not come in the house. So I asked him about what's been happening in your house, and he says, well, we rented the house, and almost immediately, within a couple months, we started hearing this banging coming up the stairs, like somebody wearing heavy work boots. Boom, boom, boom. He said, I grabbed a baseball bat and I ran downstairs to see what the heck was going on, and I could hear somebody coming up the stairs. And he said, I opened up that basement door just as those feet, the footsteps reached the top. He said, I felt this cold, tingly wind just go right by me. There was nothing there. And he said this would go on for nights, different nights there in the house. He, at some point, got possessed by this thing, whatever it was. His wife, I remember one of the stories from her, she said she would go downstairs in the basement where this thing apparently liked to hang out to do laundry. And she went down into the basement, and this thing whispered in her ear, and it said the B word, get the blank out. I'm going to kill you. She heard this thing, and she never went back down in the basement again. She left all the clothes downstairs. She just went and bought new clothes because she was not ever going in that basement again. They had a lot of other things going on in this house too, and I was amazed by the activity, the level of activity in the house. So as we sat in the living room, our group, I said jokingly, hey, Ghost, can you levitate one of us as I'm doing an EVP session? Little did I know I was asking for trouble. So we're sitting in the living room, and I suggested a certain person. He's probably the most fraidy cat person in our group. And he says, oh, no, not me. And we all laughed and didn't think anything of it. We went into the downstairs, and as we're in the basement, sitting there in the dark, with lights off, the same guy is sitting up on a workbench just down from us. All of a sudden, I hear him scream. And he yelled loud. So what happened? He said something just pushed up from my feet and was pushing me up into the air. He said, I jumped off this workbench. I didn't know where I was jumping. I just knew I had to get out of there. And he ran up the stairs. He had also heard something in the basement whisper in his ear too. So little did I know, when I asked this thing to levitate this particular guy, he'd get levitated in the basement there. And one of the things that you could say, maybe it's your imagination, Mike, maybe you're just seeing things. I am a little bit psychic. I do see things once in a while, but while I was in the basement and before this all happened, my girlfriend at the time, who was also a little psychic, she said, there's a guy here and he used to molest children. And we thought it was maybe the original owner of the house that built the house, late 1800s. She said he buried one of the kids in the wall, and that's why he haunts this house. No evidence of that. Okay. Just that's what she was picking up. But as she's saying that, I see this little tiny, like gray tornado about the size of a person swirling around right next to her. I could see the gray mist in the dark. And I'm trying to adjust my eyes and look at this thing, and I could see this thing twirling around just. And so I asked a couple of questions on EVP, and one of the responses I got, very strange, cryptic, kind of Yoda-like. I said, "Why are you doing this to these people?" And the response was, "Because there is no milk." Okay, let's break that down for a minute. What is milk? Milk is essence, right? It's life. It's babies need it when they're born. It's
Right, right.
sustenance. You sustenance is basic elemental, like you need this to live. So it was telling me it needed to torment these people because it was feeding off of them.
Mm.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So we had a TV guy with us. He was doing a video. It's called Ghost Stories 3. You could probably find it on YouTube at this point or something. Dan Hall was Vismo Productions. He did this video. He came out, filmed at the house. It was an amazing story. There was a lot of really great facts behind it. And we had been able to help clear this thing from the guy who was possessed, at least we think. And so Dan came out, he's doing the video. We didn't want to get rid of it just yet, although I had the means to do it. And I knew the guy to help us out. We're like, we'll just keep it a little longer to study it, to do the video. And the night the video was done, it premiered at the Portage Theater in Portage, Indiana, midnight showing, Halloween. So the owners of the house, they left the house. They drove out there to the theater to go see their part in the video, to see the video itself at the Portage Theater. They thought, how cool is that? They left, and as soon as they left, 12:30 a.m., the guy was shot and killed in their backyard.
No
So,
shit.
story behind this: the next door neighbors um, got boyfriend, girlfriend, the mom of this 17-year-old kid. They all knew each other, and they never had issues really that anybody else saw. But that day in the afternoon, a 17-year-old came home and started yelling at the guy, and they got into a big argument. He left, and he came back, and at 12:30 a.m., he found that boyfriend and shot him in the backyard. Now, they found him hours later just wandering the neighborhoods, taking the gun apart and throwing pieces into people's yards. They said he was in a daze, didn't really know where he was at or what he was doing. And knowing this case and how it had already possessed the owner of that house, and things had been happening to the guy where he had been possessed, I went, holy crap. This kid got possessed. He was like right on the property, basically, where this thing had possessed somebody. So
That's nuts.
I went to Sheriff Dave Lane. I'm like, Dave, can I meet with you at Franklin House? Just have a beer, talk about this. So he didn't know what I was going to tell him. I told him the story. I'm like, Dave, I don't think this kid's responsible, but how do we get him off the hook? I said, I honestly think he was possessed. He didn't even know what he was doing. And Dave Lane said, I'm with you, Mike, but no jury would ever believe you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we did clear the house after that. We immediately, like within a week, we got my guy out there that really good at this stuff, and he focused on the energy and what he did, because what we call this, it was an elemental. So elementals were never human. They're like a nature spirit, something that's been around since before humans were here. And what I got from it was there was the original owner of the house, and he did something. Maybe it was like my ex-girlfriend said, but his spirit, his ghost was tied somehow to this elemental, and they were feeding off of each other. The negative feelings, the negative emotions, the negative things he did, this thing used that to feed off of, just like it was feeding off of the owners. of this house by scaring them and causing all this bad energy. So this thing had somehow tied itself to this ghost. So my buddy Dan, he said, I cannot get rid of this elemental. I was able to get rid of the ghost and get it out of here, but the elemental won't move. It was here thousands of years ago. So he said, I'm going to tie it to this oak tree in the front yard. Check with the owners. Week later, a month later, 6 months later, gone. Nothing. But God help them if they ever cut that tree down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Have you ever had anything like that follow you home after
no,
an investigation? No.
no, I've got a spirit guide that follows me around, and I haven't had any issues. I once had something follow me to a hotel room. I was at a brewery
Wow.
in Terre Haute, and
I'm in a hotel room.
down in Terre Haute,
Travis has had that too.
I was checking this brewery out, and I was actually investigating it, and I went back to my hotel the next morning. I had just packed up to leave, and as I was getting ready to leave, the faucets got thrown on in the bathroom,
Ooh.
and I yelled, "Hey, turn those faucets off. I was just in there." And I heard, "Eek," faucets creaked off. I'm
Ooh.
like, "All right, look," I said, "you could follow me for the weekend, but you're not coming home with me." Yeah, that was the one time I could say something did follow me, but that was the extent of it. But
That
I've heard from other people that say that ghosts could follow them. And I think one of the dangers of the paranormal is you don't know if a ghost is trying to inhabit you. It can change your emotions. It can drain you. It can make you depressed. It can change your essence, basically. And there's been a lot of reports of this. Um, and I can't help but wonder sometimes I've seen people around me that were ghost hunters kind of um, tank. Like, they're over time, their personality changes and they get depressed and moody and withdraw. And at the time, I don't think I recognized it as such, but um, you do have to be careful about that. If people notice that about you, you should probably see somebody and make sure that there's not a ghost that's somehow manipulating you. Although I think it's pretty rare, it is a danger, and that's something new investigators should be aware of. Um, yeah, just something to keep in mind, I guess.
so I guess with all that, you know, and again, I don't want to get too much into your, into the religious, like what your affiliation is. I don't care about that. So I'm guessing then, like, how much does all of this kind of factor into like your belief in like an afterlife? I mean, obviously, if there's ghosts, there is one. Like what has all of this kind of helped to form that thought process?
I think it's a fair question because I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't been raised Lutheran, gone to a
Yep.
Lutheran school,
Same.
had a religious upbringing. We're taught to see things. We're taught to believe in things we can't see, right? I mean, and I'm still a strong believer but my faith has shifted in different ways. I believe the main precepts of Lutheran religion, but I also believe that there's a greater knowledge that's out there. And to me, the Bible is a great guidebook and it's the way to live your life, but it doesn't explain that the earth is round. It doesn't explain the universe. It doesn't explain the dinosaurs and the solar system and the galaxy. It doesn't, okay?
Right.
And it's the same thing with ghosts and the paranormal. It doesn't explain it. Why? Because God knows we're explorers. God knows we want to figure things out and solve the mysteries and solve the puzzles. And that's what drives us. Because if there was no more mystery, we'd all be running around depressed. We wouldn't have anything to live for. And there's so many people that do that these days because they think that the internet is it, or they found some solution on the internet, and they're just not exploring really what's out there. They're not learning. And I think that's part of it. And I think God just wants us to be happy and learn and um, and appreciate it. This is a big universe. And I have had one of my friends, since I've been doing this for so long, I've had people die that have been around me, and I've recently had somebody die that has come back and has spoken to me on EVP.
Oh, no, that's cool. That's pretty cool. And
Um,
that's, and
yeah.
and it makes me think of, and I don't want to, if you've got something else that you were starting to go in, I don't want to interrupt you, but it made me think of like what we're talking about now. Um, I'm sure you're familiar with Zach Baggins, and in Gary, Indiana, there was the house that was
The,
supposedly
the
possessed
demon
by
house.
the demon house.
Demon House, yeah.
Yep. So I guess that's I guess my next segue, kind of question into that,
Mm.
did you know anything about the demon house? Were you involved in that at all? And then kind of follow up, how much of it do you attribute to when you are ghost hunting and watching that? How much of that do you contribute to something, to an entity of that nefarious sense?
Yeah, so I did go to Zach Baggins' museum in Vegas. I did see the stairs, the remains of the house because it's been torn down. It the story of the people that had this happen to them, uh, it's a little bit strange, right? I mean, these people didn't do any sort of things to rile up demons, but maybe somebody at the house before them did. There are videos supposedly of the child walking up the side of a wall at the police station. There's things that have happened to the police that were skeptics on their way home, and things that happened to them after the case that they couldn't explain. The child protective service worker that came out to the house, she quit as soon as this case was over. She would never go back out to do a case again. There's so
Yeah,
many
I did see
strange
that.
things with this case that, you know, point to the fact that there was something going on there. I'm not a big fan of Zach, all right, and a lot of us
No.
aren't. I'm more of a ghost hunters fan. Those guys are good, but so Zach, it's kind of a joke in the industry. Everybody says Zach kind of Zach Baggins it. He makes it more than what it is sometimes, and you can see that in his
Yeah.
museum in Vegas, where yeah, there's some things, but he makes it a little bit more spooky or scary, just
Yeah.
because that's the way he is.
Yeah,
But
because we
the
did want to ask about the Annabelle doll too, so that actually fits in.
I was going to ask that because my
Perfect.
my
That's why I
daughter,
said that's like we couldn't have
yeah,
planned this if we wanted to.
yeah,
well,
so, I mean, the demon house, though, I mean, I believe that the stuff that was going on was real. I did not go out to the case because people do ask, I'm not a demon hunter. I don't look for the demons. I don't go out for demons. I don't go to places merely for entertainment value like Zach might do. It's not a roller coaster ride to me. It's not an amusement park. I like to study it. Sure, I'll go to haunted places, say Mantino Asylum, we used to go, or Mansfield, Ohio prison and things. That's more for research and study to kind of observe and learn, but, something like that, there's no point to it, and
Yeah.
demons are real. I mean, don't fool yourself, and although they're very rare, they're not as common as Zach might have you believe, but demon cases are real, and they could do a lot of damage to you. They could hurt you, they can attack you. People think that it's all fun and games, but if you watch Zach's video, bad things happen to him, and, uh, I just thought to myself, "You kinda had this coming, dude." I mean, you don't go
Yeah.
messing around with this stuff.
Yeah.
But if somebody
Well,
needed my
more
help, I would try to help them, and I would try and get the church involved if it was demonic. I'm
yeah.
not gonna turn people away, but I just don't go chasing that stuff down,
Well,
and
I've always had a very strong belief too. So like I started dating my girlfriend about 4 years ago, and a few months into it, we there was the house I was renting, it was very creepy. There was a lot of different stuff where the dogs would kinda go crazy and look in one corner,
uh,
and I was always very like, "All right, well, we're just gonna ignore that and just keep going." And there was this really creepy basement, with this it was so creepy. So you never know how much of it is whatever, but I came home from a trip, and she had made, like, this little room in the basement of, like, sheets and stuff so my daughter can have, like, a little play area, right?
uh-huh,
Bit younger at the time, and one of the things that she had bought was she had bought it off Amazon, and was this big, it was like a flag type material, and it was a Ouija board, and I go, "Get it out of the house right now." I
mhm,
go, "Get it out." to get it out of my house. I don't screw with that shit. I don't but and she's like, "Okay." So I guess that's my so the whole point of me telling you that is that I've always been on the belief of, I believe that there's evil in this world. I believe that there's horrible things that happen, and I go out of my way to avoid getting myself in between that and involved in that. I mean, how much would you have freaked out and said, "Hey, get that Ouija board thing out," or is that me maybe overreacting a little bit? With what you've learned over the years.
Yeah, the Ouija boards in themselves are a tool. They're a scrying tool, right? They could be used for good or bad, but there can be danger to them. I don't react quite the same way as that, but I don't use them. I don't recommend people go using them because there are dangers inherently with using the Ouija board. I studied that back in the early days. I actually looked into that when I was 19 and experimented with them long before I got into the paranormal. And, yeah, it could actually make contact with the ghosts, but what do they really know? They don't know any more than you and me. They're not gonna tell you lottery numbers, and you don't know who you're talking with on the other side either. I mean,
Yeah,
you could have, some guy playing off, to be, a stand-up guy, and it could be some sort of pedophile or rapist or
yeah,
it could be, they pretend to be a woman and it could be a guy. You don't know. It could be like the crying game all over again. So no, there's, you don't know what you're dealing with on the other side. And that's why you don't mess with the Ouija boards because you don't know what it is. And there's no way to know. It could tell you one thing and there's no way to prove it. So better off not to use that. I would just recommend against it. I actually I have one Ouija board in my collection, and it's never come out of the cellophane wrapper. I got it from the only haunted Toys R Us in existence in San Jose, California, with the receipt taped to it. It's just kind of
that's
a
cool.
little commemorative item for me, but I don't mess with that stuff. It's just not for me, but I get it. No, I get it. Uh,
Yeah.
So, do you think Annabelle is real? The
Yeah, I think it could be. I mean, I've seen the movies of Annabelle, but you know, I I met Lorraine Warren. I was telling you guys before the show started that
Right.
I hosted Lorraine Warren at the Chicago Ghost Conference with Ursula Bielski in 2009. And I was the one to say, let's bring in Ursula, or I'm sorry, let's bring in Lorraine Warren. There was a lot of push for let's bring in some of these new ghost hunters. And I'm like, no, let's bring in some of the old school ghost hunters because those people have been around, they've seen a lot. So we heard Lorraine talk. I think she's a very trustworthy, very nice lady, very smart. She talked at colleges with Ed as they were teaching people over the years. I have a lot of respect for Lorraine Warren. So if she says it's real, there's something to it. Okay. Let me just say that. I
Yeah.
trust her and I trust that they knew what they were doing. Um, and they helped the church in a lot of these cases too. I don't know why anybody would dedicate the amount of time and the amount of their life to doing this unless they were really on a mission. So, you
how how soon before you think we'll have an update on your poltergeist case that you're working on?
it could take a couple of weeks because the way this is going to run, I've got the actual investigation coming up tomorrow night. And then we have to go through our results, go through our evidence. We're going to have a closing with the case, but I don't know if that'll be next week or the week after. I don't know if we'll have to do a return visit to see if we can gather more evidence or if we're going to go back a second time. I don't know yet. Um, I think we want to find evidence and have an opportunity to do that. So it could be maybe a week or two. I don't know for sure just yet. But
Well,
I'll do a report, yeah.
you've gone viral now, so you got a lot of people watch.
I I will live up to it, and I will tell everybody about the case. I just don't wanna say too much about it while the case is
Yeah.
ongoing, and I'd rather talk about it at its conclusion and report back with, "Hey, happy news, we were able to solve the case and help out this kid and help out the family," and that's the bottom line is just helping people out. Um,
Well, we know a couple of guys that you could talk about that with, just saying we
yeah.
can.
Yeah.
We can absolutely do a return visit because
I'll be happy
like I
to.
said,
Yeah.
this we would love to, once you get more information on that, we'd love to have you back on after the fact. I
Yeah.
uh I had I just wanted to real quick before we move on to the next question, because I saw keep I know you hold on, but
Yeah.
I was wanted to tell this story. Is I had this crazy, because you talk about being like psychic and you're talking about meeting up. So when I was on the Hebron Town Council, so without getting too, obviously there's going to be some politics. We both were involved in it. Uh, the Hebron police chief at the time, Steve Sabrell.
I met him. I know him. Okay. Go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah. Well, he had always said that he actually was a touch kind of psychic as well, and he would, he said that he kind of had feelings of stuff, right? And the house that we were at in Hebron was absolutely haunted. I mean, we used to just sit there and watch TV, and we would hear people just walking in the upstairs attic. And I would just turn it was just so common that I would just turn the volume up on the TV. All the time we would hear
Mm.
it, like stomping around up there. And we would, and that was where we would go up there because we were both smokers at the time, and there was a big exhaust fan, and so we would, we would go up there to smoke to the exhaust fan, we'd blow it out, and but I used to do a podcast similar to this with microphones hanging, and every once in a while I would catch like a little something, and my then wife at the time would be like, do you want to, like, and I'm like, nope, we're just gonna cut that, and I would just I just cut it out, don't even. but but he had come over, and so we had painted one of the walls, and I
Mhm.
didn't tell you this, right? We had painted one of the walls in chalk paint, the black paint that you could write with chalk on it, because the kids were babies. They were like 1 and 2 at the time, or 2 or 3, whatever. And that way they could draw with chalk on their wall. And Steve had, Officer Sabrell had come over, and we were talking, because I was the police liaison at the time. And we were talking about who knows, I don't know, hiring some new policemen or something. And he's like, man, he goes, you know, he's like, I just got this weird feeling. And I'm like, what's that? And he goes, well, I kind of have a feeling. He goes, they don't like when the kids draw on the walls like that. And I was like, ah, don't like that.
Yeah.
That was probably the one of the weirdest ones that I had as far as, kind of ghost stories,
Sure.
type deal.
And like I said, I met Steve, nice guy. We were talking about how the police station was haunted at one time, and we were, kind
The
of walking
house.
around there talking about, yeah, it was like a little house, and
Yep.
he told me about Heritage Inn and his experiences with the Hebron Heritage Inn, and that's still part of my one of my routes that I run, the Legends of the Kankakee route. We stop by the Casey's gas station where the old Hebron Heritage Inn used to be, and talk about the ghost stories there. But yeah,
Now where
nice guy.
Walgreens was, that's where that train wreck happened.
Yep.
Where the trains were
Panhandle
standing out.
Depot. Yep.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
And
When I lived in town, I would randomly, how many people have said that in Hebron, where you hear trains, you hear train horns,
Yeah, and
in
where
Hebron.
your house was, you were right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I would hear it all the time. All the time I would hear it. We actually found, and I don't know if it's still there. I forgot about this. We actually found an old grave marker, and you could barely read what was written on it, but it was in our backyard, like kind of like buried. Um, and it had two. We think that it was children, because at the top it
yeah.
had the two lambs, like, at the top. So,
Right.
I mean, just the amount of history, and it was an old house, obviously. It was
Mhm.
1918, maybe it might have even been 1800s, I don't know. But it was old, and yeah, there's so much history. That's the coolest part to me, is all the history behind it. I mean, the Dillinger stuff, that you guys cover in the Crown Point,
Mhm. Mhm.
going around the square. It's just so cool to look at it through that lens.
Oh yeah,
So what
absolutely.
are your pub crawls gonna be firing up anytime soon?
We'll
Maybe when the weather
probably
breaks?
start them up when the weather comes back. We'll do a little bit in April and May. We don't really get cooking too much with until about September. That's the main tour season, September, October, and early November for us. Everything is running by that point. And I hope to have a couple of new indoor locations for us going into the next year, or into this year rather.
Anything you can talk about
Well, some
or
old
not so much?
churches. There's actually some old churches that are haunted, and they're interested in trying to bring some money in because congregations die off, and their people aren't going to church like they used to. So they're like, "Hey, we got this haunted church. Maybe you want to do some ghost tours there, bring a little bit of money in for us, and people can investigate for ghosts at these haunted churches." They aren't especially spooky, but old churches, and there's some activity going on with these. So
Oh, I'm
maybe,
sure.
I mean, and we could make it very reasonable. We bring the equipment. People come out, they have a chance to ghost hunt at a location and get their feet wet a little bit and try it out, and just check out some haunted places. Some people won't set foot in that old jail in Crown Point. It's just too scary for them. I mean, and that's one of the ones we take people into. But maybe something like this would likely to get some people that would try it out, especially if it's a church, right? Because it can't be anything bad in there, right?
Right, right. No.
It's a blessed site. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's some possibilities. There's a couple of places like that we're looking at doing. Um, but yeah, and things pop up too. There's a new investigation I just got called out for that it is in Griffith, where the owner of this place, it's kind of a popular bar, has got some bad stuff going on, and
Oh,
they want us to see if we can investigate it and then clear it. So I
Griffith is a
said,
pretty old town too.
yeah, and I said, hey, this might be something we can throw into the tours too. You never know. And
Yeah.
it's like, she's like, well, you know what? I wouldn't be opposed to that. So, you know, the, my wheels always start turning when I do get called out to these haunted places and think, can I take people out there? Is there something that we could take people out to and bring them out? And that's just the way I think. I don't know. It's like, you
Yeah.
know, but I have fun with
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
And that you know what? I think we had said about an hour. I think unless Keith has any more questions or you have anything else, Michael, um, I think that's all the real questions we had about it.
okay,
If you have anything
We
else
could go
that
on
you want to
forever.
add, by all means, we would love to have you back on
sure. Yeah,
once you finish that up or you get something else new. We'd love to have you back on in a month and a half, couple months, do an
sure.
update,
Sure.
see how everything's going, see what else new you got going,
Yeah.
and yeah, maybe this time, I'll be back in Indiana, and we can bring you into the actual studio and sit down
That'd be fun.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you so much.
Mhm.
We've had a great time with this. We absolutely both love stuff like this. We're gonna start doing more of that with the show, and we really appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll have this episode up in in 1 week. So we
Okay.
usually do these episodes on the kind of the Wednesdays after. So we'll have this up, but when we do, I'll send you the link and everything, and so you can watch it and check it out.
Sounds
Let's see.
good.
You
Sounds
we're
good.
on your
And
page.
if
This
people
one.
are curious about my ghost tours, I am on Facebook. I'm on TikTok, Instagram. Website is chaostrips.com. Chaos Haunted and Historical Tours on Facebook. But come check us out. There's always videos and extra content on there, and EVP and stuff people share with us from our tours that they get. So you guys can probably see some cool stuff there too. So thanks again, guys, for
Oh,
having me on.
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
It was a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.